My journey from atheism to enlightenment, it hasn't been pretty. But I can tell you what I have learned. I've learned that we are limitless, that we are powerful beings, and the truth has been hidden. So if you're ready to step in, take your own power back, then welcome to your fate. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, I have humanitarian spiritual teacher Maya Tiwari here. She has a new book out. We are going to get into the rise of the feminine divine ladies. It is our time. Maya, welcome to your fate, my friend. How are you doing
Very
today?
good, actually. I was so looking forward to being on with you, Christy. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining me. It is a pleasure. I read your book, and it's called I Am Shakti.
Yes, correct.
Pronunciation?
Perfect.
Okay. It really is, it's a deep dive into what has gone wrong with regards to the male and female energies of not only within ourselves, but within the planet, within our existence. But I really want to talk first about your own journey. You have a story to tell in itself. You talk about it in the book about how you got to where you are today. And can we start there and tell us a little bit about your own awakening and your own path in life?
That's always such a humongous topic, right? For each one of us that have gone through so many crossroads. But let me say that my first major initiation as a woman, an adult, was cancer, ovarian cancer. And that took me through, at the age of 18, 19, whatever, to be diagnosed with ovarian cancer was a huge thing, especially at the height of a very big fashion career at a very early age. But that journey taught me that we all walk in divine grace. There was absolutely no reason why I would have survived it, having had chemotherapy, radiation, many surgeries, whatever, by the best of the best in New York City in terms of oncology and gynecology. And yet I wasn't going to be alive. So I retreated to this amazing snow. I love the snow. I went to the cabins in Vermont during the winter I'm not sure what. I think I just retreated from hospital medical care and wanted to write a letter to my family who were in Canada at the time. And I didn't really, I just needed space and time to perhaps leave the earth, because that was the diagnosis and the prognosis. So yes, that was the first initiation. What I discovered from that is what all of us discover through grief and loss. And that is, there is a divine energy that always guides and always protects and is always there. And oftentimes it slaps us down so we can find the true purpose, the true path. And basically, we're talking about true path. So it reunited me back to the ancestral path. And when I say ancestral path, I was brought up in a Hindu Brahmin home, even though it was outside of India. And there were such deep ancestral imprints in the karma, could not be avoided. My father, of course, was the great oarsman who steered me back after I survived that bout in Vermont, came out alive, shook up 90 pounds and less, but I was free of cancer after. And that's a huge story, but it's a huge story that shows us that we do not control what we think we control. It's beyond us and above us, and it's not even outside of us. It's all within the cell and memory and tissue of our own being.
Within. Yes. And it's yet again, another story that I find is just a thread throughout so many of us finding ourselves back to who we truly are is through an illness, through trauma, through some sort of obstacle that becomes overwhelming in our lives that kind of strips off our ego. It strips off all the um, identities that we think we are, and you start to really unfold in surrender. In I know from my own personal experience, I too had an illness and I almost died 10 years ago, which got me onto my
Right.
path of
Right.
spiritual awakening and understanding we don't um, control much, and that if we're not on our path, spirit will somehow get us steered in the right
And it
direction.
does answer the
Some
question why, you know, is suffering. The women in
yes,
particular is, why
yes,
am I being hit? Why am I having to deal with? Why do I have to lose my child? What? And
yes,
I think what it is our we're trained to believe certain things, and this is where patriarchy comes in. This is where the Shakti work truly comes in. We have been trained. Can you believe it? More than 300,000 years in
yeah,
humanity.
yeah,
I mean, if we were to put a time on this training, this false training, to believe, to
yeah,
accept, to be whole, and yet they could never. The patriarchs could never get rid of the imprint in the woman. It is so
yeah,
written, it is so coded because we are, at the bottom line, a self organizing, self generating intelligence. And, even
yes,
when we're wiped out by media amnesia, we still have this that we can reclaim. We just need to start putting in, not boundaries, because I've never had boundaries. You can't be helping people to heal and have boundaries at the same time. It's a very intimate transaction, an intimate relationship. You put up boundaries, nobody's going to heal. But we have to be able to regard that space within us that
yeah,
dictates that space around us, right? And start lightening
yep,
up the load so that we can get back to the simplicity of what it's all about. But rather than get off topic here, um, yes, so that was the first initiation. The second, which we can spare for another time, is being targeted by the cabals themselves. In, years later, having built the nonprofit schools, moved to the mountains of North Carolina, had the most sublime, incredible life there, really, with the animals, with the gardens, with the forest, with life, with the big red hawks, with the Pisgah Mountain, with the always snow top, reminding me of Himalayas. And then it all changed. It changed when the housing market came down, when the methamphetamine moved into the neighborhood, when crises in big cities like New York, 9/11, whatever, threw people towards the mountain. They left and migrated, and farms became concrete jungles and big mansions and the like. So
yeah.
we know that
And
that in,
we know that story. Here we are.
and here we are. And then
Yeah.
after 35 years of being out there in the public with this work, not through media, but through doing the work, the nitty gritty work on the ground to help build health and holistic health. And my mission, Mother of Mission, lasted for years until COVID in the inner cities of New York, where people who had no access to any form of healing had yoga, Ayurveda, the state of the art work. But these were families with manifold layers of pathologies that needed to heal. So the work has been proving itself, and it's quietly, as it must be. But then getting back to what happened with its, I caught some eye of some major patriarchal force, obviously, because these are high end ops. I mean, these are ex everything, ex military, ex law, ex whatever. And basically, and they have been trying to make the life into a living hell. They raised all my data. They constantly at my timelines, my history, but also body invasions and stuff that are extremely not funny at all. And it shows that really the law can only protect so much. We live in the fringes of law in a society that we call democratic. But I shan't get
Mm-hmm.
political
Yeah.
because the work I do is non-political. We stay focused
I mean,
on the agenda of healing.
yes, I agree with that. Let's go and talk a little bit about what female male energy means. Shatka and Shiva is what you describe them as, and the foundations of the balance that needs to come to the forefront within our own cultures, within our own reality. I personally believe there's never been a time in our history where it is more important to bring the feminine divine, feminine energy to the forefront and start leading societies and running governments. Because quite clearly, and I'm going to say some controversial shit on this show, but like, quite frankly, men have done a terrible job at running society. They have subjugated women for thousands of years, taken away our voice, taken away our ability to um, have an opinion on the formation of our own communities, of our own um, societies. And I think this conversation about bringing back the balance of the feminine into our world has never been more important. So let's start with Shiva and Shakti and what that is and how these energies need to be balanced in order for other things to happen within this
Thank you,
earthly
Christy.
plane.
And yes, getting to the point of that, because it is the focus of our conversation today, um,
Yes.
is is also the solution to some of the things we've just talked about. The solution of being denigrated as a woman, the solution of being dismissed
Yes.
as a woman, the solution of being whatever. But there's a core history and a core understanding, a core pathology that we as women must look at. We must know our history. We must know how this happened. We must know why it happened. And then we can reclaim. Because what are we reclaiming if we don't
Yes.
have the knowledge of what we are reclaiming? The Shakti force, Shakti means, it's a Sanskrit word that means divine primordial feminine. It is in the nucleus of the earth. It's in the core of all her memories. It's in every drop of sand. And so basically in every tear, every drop of water, it is part of the way that we have been designed as a feminine force, not just as a woman. Shakti
Yes.
is also in the animals, the female that give birth to their babies and the trees that give birth to its babies. And it's all through nature. But in the woman body, in humanity, as human beings on earth, in the woman body, she is the one, she is the architect, not only of procreation, but she brings and keeps alive through that procreation, not just babies, but the nurturance, the education, the intelligence, the sentiency, the consciousness that comes in to making life whole, making it, keeping it, preserving it, sustaining it. And that's why women carry the burden. We carry the burden of our cultures, our societies, our homes, and more importantly, of nature itself. We are the emissaries, whether we call ourselves goddesses of the goddess emissary or whatever beautiful poetic name we want to give to it. It's beyond religion. It's beyond politics. It's beyond the patriarchal rule. And what is Shiva? Shiva is on the same tangent, being interdependent with Shakti, the primordial masculine divine. Now, these two energies have always been intricately intertwined. The act of separation came as a result of patriarchal rule, patriarchal disassociation of the feminine. But more importantly, the point that I got to in I Am Shakti, which is really, I think, a phenomenal core point, the pivot, and that is, were the masculine just disembodying the Shakti force in women? Were they just corrupting it? Did they just want it annihilated from the good earth? No, they wanted to own it
Yeah.
because therein lies the creative foresight, the prescient knowledge of what's to come, the prescient knowledge of what we call sixth sense intuition and all sorts of nonsense. But the fact is, it's embedded in the woman. It is part and parcel
Yeah.
of her great, incredible knowledge, whether she's got a PhD or not, and whether she's gone through high school or not. It's the commonsensical, exquisite knowledge that belongs to her.
Yeah. 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 I agree. The emotional intelligence that women bring to any circumstance is men are incapable of even having that kind of depth. It seems to,
But what is
you
the
know.
sad part of all of this? Because I protect the men completely as well. We cannot the structure cannot live with just female, because look, we have many women in politics, many women in medical sciences, and they're betraying our reproductive rights more than men are. We've got scientists who are
It's true.
betraying the world. Triai Atlas had to come and give them 14,000 plus violation of cosmic laws, and now science is upside down, and they don't want to tell the public what's going on. But here really is the crux of it. The Shiva energy is so sublime unto itself. It's the platform of consciousness. It doesn't materialize what the feminine force does, but it stabilizes that feminine force. It gives it power, it gives it that whatever. Their role is consciousness itself. So, what can be greater than that? So, what they did was they violated their principle of their own primordial divine masculine because they were so greedy, so lustful for the feminine Shakti. And so here we
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah.
We've got to also educate men to reclaim that which is not the gutter they were put through is the toxic masculine. That is not their nature. And it's corrupted our men. It's corrupted them long and far. No wonder
Yes.
so many of our young people want to be some other gender. Because basically what they've seen
Yeah.
as an example the divine masculine is so appalling. And what girls see as an example of their mother being mistreated and that they also want to change their gender. You cannot blame the young population for trying to carve out other niches for themselves. And in fact, if we can get the masculine feminine balance back in force, we need to do that in order to not have our children go haywire, awry over here and over there. Because basically, there is such a thing as other than the masculine, feminine. In that chapter which I talk about in all
Yeah.
Vedic scriptures, we read about the fact that all of nature has the anomaly of those who are not masculine or feminine, right? and and that's a
Yes.
very small percentage of our universe. And but basically it
Yes.
exists. We need to respect it. We need to let them be there. Thank goodness they're not in the battlefield of Shiva Shakti, because it is a battlefield. It's
Yeah. And we've been on the losing end of that battlefield for
a
a
long
long
time.
time. And there's many, many reasons why. I mean, we as women, number one, are not united in the least. I think women need to start standing up for women more. I think there's this competition that exists between women. I'm in an industry where you have two types of women: women that support other women, and there's women out there that do not support other women. They've gotten into these roles of power, and they use their power for self-service or to fit into the patriarchy, not to make any type of real change and allow excuse me, and allow women to
Because it's
rise.
convenient.
Rise.
It's convenient
Yeah.
because we were set up. But here again, we need to understand the core, the seed that germinated this problem. The seed that germinated the problem of competition, of jealousy, of envy, of trying to outdo, is the very seed that got
Yes.
corrupted. Well, the seed is never corrupted, by the way, but the very misrepresentation of that seed, which is in the isolation and separatism that we were crafted in, the belief system of separation. That person has cancer. Okay, so that them, I don't have it. That we're so connected. We are the one. There is no separation. And until we can work on re-owning that seed that is within us, that is always, look, that one question clears this up very clearly. Someone is in need of help. A child falls down, run into the road in the middle of traffic. You don't think, you run after and grab the child. regardless of the traffic. When you save the child and bail her or him out of that trauma, there's a feeling inside that cannot be replaced. It's that genuine
Yeah.
humanity. Okay, when we have disasters and they're striking all over the world, I mean, the floods and the storms and the tornadoes and the earthquakes and the sky falling down, the clouds are now raining plastics, but we'll get to that later. Um, when 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 we have that, communities do come back to their humanity. They do go out and help. They understand the suffering. But why must we wait until a big storm hits us and that we're all, riven with a million different splinters before we help? We've got to get back to the seed of who we are. We are none separate. You suffer, I suffer. You're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah. The mainstream media, or whatever you want to say, has done a very good job, particularly in the last since COVID, of really um, taking people's ability to empathize, sympathize with other people. We've become less inclined to care about others, about nature, about anything. And they've done a great job of taking our own humanity away from each other so we don't care what happens to somebody else, especially if they don't think the way we do. There's this thing now that if you don't think like I think, I'm not going to care about you. You're not human to me. You're less than. I'm superior. You're danger. Like there's the divisions that have arisen within our culture have are really going to lead us into the most dark places if we don't start pulling back and stop allowing your eyeballs to constantly be penetrated with fear, with outrage, and with misinformation that is leading you to hate somebody else that you don't even know. Whether you're a man or a woman
Absolutely.
out there, that is
And that
happening.
is what you built, the group mentality. The group mentality, the divide
Yes.
and conquer. And group mentality has always been the MO of the colonizers. And now we've got psychic colonizers, not just physical colonizers. We've got people who've got the art of colonization of the mind, of the body, of the spirit down to a science.
Yes.
And they also use
Yes.
holistic
Yes.
works to do this, by the way. It's not like they're driven by a completely different set of machinery, but there is a place, there is a law in the universe that eventually balances everything out. The media is not the politicians. The politicians are not exactly the ones that are running the show. They're the cabals, the deep state. They're all being used. They're all instruments of what has to happen, and they are being cautioned all the time as to what to do and what not to do. And we need to understand that these poor people are enslaved in the process of
Yes.
it all. They're not free.
Yes.
They're not free to be. They may start out. You've got to be totally idyllic to go into the seat of the presidency and not know that you will get gray hair in 2 days. I mean, it is absolutely, um, yeah. It's where you've got to have great apathy. These are roles where you have to be formed in apathy in order to survive them. And social media is just really there in the field of competition and who's better and who's better and who's more famous and who's that is just there to keep people distracted and occupied with the
Exactly.
possibly unnecessary stuff, whereas it starts wiping your minds out. Your sentiency becomes less, your ability to grasp, to read, to understand is all being driven into this glob.
Yeah.
The intellectualism is not needed here. They don't want philosophers. They do not want the freedom of speech. And you walk, as I said, as you know this, Christy, we walk the very razor's edge to be able to come out with the conversation we are having now. You pay the price for that.
I mean, for me though, like, I don't know. I've lived such a different life. Like, I grew up beating boys up. My dad raised me. We used to fight. I used to give him a bloody nose. Like, I took that out in the streets and I beat up boys on my block till I was 12 years old. I have been hanging out with men. I've been in male dominated industries my whole life. I will go toe to toe with, like, I don't even think about them being a man. Like, I've always been super rough and tumble, super tomboy, super male energy. Like, in my world, I would much rather belly up to the bar with a dude than go to a girls' night. Like, that's just who my energy is. And like, I'm fully aware that there's no world in which men should be solely running anything. I think we need to start talking about the fallibilities that men also possess. For instance, they are completely and totally led by their dipstick. I'm sorry, but they are. It's a liability for them. Any hot chick out there knows that you can do anything to a guy because all they really care about is their dipstick and food. That's it. They're very easily, figured out. They need women way more than we need men. We thrive without men. They die without us. For us to be subjugated, especially now when women have been educated, we've come out of the homes, we're powerful, we're professional, we're fearless. We are going toe to toe with men out there all the time. I really think that women just need to start stepping up to men and showing them how it's done. I don't even know why we're scared of men. Why? Because you have more upper body
And no,
strength than me?
and it's
Get the
no,
hell
and
out of
I
here.
so appreciate what you're saying. It's not about being scared of men. It's just that when you've been targeted as I have been, and I'm perhaps one of the bravest women I know in terms of my own life journey and what I've conquered and what I've not conquered and what I've done and what I've
Yes,
stayed out of and
yes.
what I've decided not to be involved in and all of those things. And I've always since redirected from cancer from the world of popular to the world of service, it's been that way for me. And I try to walk an
Mm.
impeccable path, not perfect, but best I can do, and best I can do. But when what they do is they do this invisible thing where the operation happens from inside your building, inside, the apartment above you, ta. The break-ins happen where it's invisible. They have a methodology around this. It's ironclad and and then you have no help from the surrounding law or the surrounding enforcements or the surrounding legal team. Even your lawyers belong to them. It's all in the pocket of it. So what you're doing is you fight the battle for as long as you can, and then you decide to withdraw from the battle and take care of your energies, observe what's going on, don't give them the power uh, to do. They
Yeah.
keep doing it because they have many involved in this, and these are men who look totally fine. They have young children, they have wives, they have suburban homes, whatever, and they come in looking very well pulled together. And they have to bear this horrific karma, and I feel so badly for them because I'll tell you why. I feel badly for them because they're corrupting the last of the essence left in them. There's something they cannot be honest with their own family when they're involved in these types of work, and they just go into that broken karma. Um, Putting that aside, though, I too have a great deal of that masculine uh, positioning. Had a great father,
Yeah. Let's go, boys. Let's go.
played cricket when I was supposed to be menstruating at an early age. Mother had to run into
Yeah.
the field to collect the pads and stuff like that. But but basically, it was so nice, when I left the robes, having been a monk as well in the Vedic tradition, one of the first women in a very solid Vedic tradition. Um, and I left the robes. It was because at a later age, at the age of I of course lost my womb at 18, 19, something like that. And then, going into the path of the ancestral studies of it's not just scriptures, it's Vedas, it's sciences of life, like Ayurveda, which is the science of healing. Um, there wasn't a drive or an urge to express that femininity, that womanhood. Was not because we lose our womb, we lose our femininity. That's not the point, and we don't. But years later, something caught my eye, the first attraction I had to a male person. And nothing happened from that. But what happened was a huge catharsis within me. And also I understood that I needed to express the divine feminine that's within me. And the robes
Yes.
didn't do that. And also, the robes weren't great for helping people to heal either. People are constantly kowtowing, bowing, whatever, and carrying your bags. And basically, you know, that in itself is a huge blockage to energy flowing freely. And because of all of that, I dropped robes. And I'm very happy that I did. It was the right choice, the best decision. I did, by the way, the targeting began right after that, which is perhaps no coincidence. But what I found was the most cherished thing within us as the divine feminine that not only feels deeply, not only cries easily, but that you understand that you can forgive every 5 minutes the same betrayal because that's what women do. But it's also a divine feminine feature. I found out forgiveness is just right behind the whatever, because to claim that divine femininity, you have to reclaim the fact that we're not responsible for the betrayals. We're not responsible for what men do. We're not responsible for what our children do, unless we brought them up badly and neglected them completely. We are responsible to the higher energy of that divine, incredible, incorruptible, flawless femininity within ourselves. And that's what Shakti is about. It naturally protects everything. It naturally nurtures everything. It's not just the homemaker and you stay home and do your work as a woman and I'm going to go out and be the big boy with the big tractor. It's not that simple. It is not that
Mm-mm.
simplistic. And women resisted that because it was reduced to the monotonous, boresome, I'm the housewife and you're the king. And so we've got to not disown nurturance. Our own nature, we cannot disown. We simply have to learn how to use it in the way that it divinely supplies us with more regenerative energy, more wisdom, and there it is.
But but how do we get male energy on board with us? Because there is a very strong current in every culture across this planet where somehow men feel superior because, let's face it, there is something that lies within our human ego where we love to feel superior to other people. We love it. Whether it's for money or fame, or I'm a boy and you're a girl, I'm better. Like, we love it. Our ego's like,
Okay,
eat it
let's
up.
look at the current.
So, what do we do about
Let's look
that?
at the current.
Okay.
Why is so much of the world politics gone even more driven into this malehood, the patriarchy? Because they're losing ground. They're
Mhm.
intensifying now because the women are waking up. But it's not just the women that's waking up. Mother Earth has woken up already, and Mother Earth is saying, to hell with this. I'm going to hurricane this, tornado that, earthquake this, storm that, and bring in Three-Eye Atlas on top of it because basically we're
Yes.
here. We are going to be tested to the core because you've got to give this up. And they're not, but they are afraid. There is a huge, incredible fear within the deep space, within the authority, so to speak, those few that the 5% that controls humanity. There is this incredible fear, and that's why they're digging their heels in and giving their last efforts. But I tell you what, the divine feminine has always had the warrior inside of her, the Kali force, the Archangel Michael, that's still a divine feminine force. It is, I'm taking the
Mhm.
sword and I am going to slice off this incredible disease, this virus. I'm going to burn it to ashes. And so that divine energy force is awakened. And women are now, they don't need my book to be awakened. But it's wonderful to understand why we're getting awakened. But basically, what's happening is that force is just absolutely raging through the psyche of our universe, not just the earth. And this is why our gentlemen friends are digging in their heels and they're trying all sorts of methodology, because what their power was based on was fear of the feminine. And they used her
Yes.
constructs and they rebuilt it in their own mechanized way, thinking it's like, I've used this example before. It's like medical science doing the reproductive rights for women. How have they taken over? How have we been barraged and invaded in our modern history? Why do they want
Mm.
your reproductive right? Why do they want to control that? Because that is where the Shakti force energy seed lies. And this is, if they can control that, then they can control the feminine force. So that's one of the major examples. They're doing the same thing, reproductive rights, with the earth, the genetic manipulations of the
Yeah.
earth, the absolute, we can get into all of the deforestation, the absolute havoc it's
I
created with
mean, the
species.
whole entire destruction of our planet you could lay at the feet of the patriarchy. If women were ruling things, we would be way more concerned about the natural world, about the other species on this
And
planet, about pollution.
and that, I might say, Christy, are women who are awakened to their own feminine energy, not women who are emulating the patriarchal power structure. Because most of the women
True.
in power today are women who are vying with the patriarchal structure and try and doing some of the most damaging things to women as well. In the field of science, we have so many women behind reproductive takeover. It's damaging the very nucleus of life, and they separate themselves as being women. So we're not just talking about powerful women, we're talking about empowered women in their own feminine force. There is a
Mm.
difference. And she is the newcomer, whether we're 90 years old, 80 or 70 as I am, or 60 or 50 or 20. She is the newcomer. She is coming
I
in
agree.
with the force of the universe behind her.
I agree. I think there is definitely, well, we all know there's a great awakening happening on the earth, whether you're male or female. People are awakening to understand that there's so much more going on, that we weren't taught the whole story of who we are. Our origin story is not, we've been lied to, we've been manipulated, we have been subjugated. I mean, and people are starting to understand and question everything. They're questioning their religious upbringings. They're questioning who they are inside. There's a big wave of people that are just going to start unlocking their own internal power and taking their own
Wonderful.
power back.
Wonderful. Yep.
That is
That's where we are.
happening. And that's where we're at. And you know, I think that it is, for me personally, I think it's a delicate dance, because even though I do feel that feminine divine energy within, I also think that women really need to own our own power and take our own um, independence back from men, and becoming much more independent in mind, in finances, in everything,
Absolutely.
and start
We
really
have to.
leveling the
We
playing
have to,
field.
because you can't really have a
Yeah,
successful relationship unless you're empowered within yourself. You're always going to be the half of
that's
somebody
right.
else's whole or the whole of somebody else's whatever. And it's always going to be
That's
that.
right.
Then, marriage is not about interdependency. It's about, it's really about co relationship. It's about growing
Yes,
together in your own path. And oftentimes your path diverge because you're growing differently, and whatever, somebody cannot make you whole again. So women have to get on with it, because unless the women, here is the big science of cosmic science of the universe, unless the feminine force can strengthen and re-empower herself with what's already in her. This is not education we need to get from outside. It's simply learning how to re-navigate what is already in us. Unless she can do that, nothing functions. her children wouldn't function, the men don't
Agreed.
function. She is the pivot. She is the nucleus. She is the centrifugal force of our life. So, so we have hopes for men as well, because if the woman is taking back her power, it will automatically help men to drive their own Shiva primordial force, because we do need their support. Not because of muscle and strength and all of that, because the Shiva force is the underlying conscious force. It doesn't materialize all the nurturance and manifestation and nature and everything that women do, but it supports that by being that stabilized, incredible force. Not just breadwinner. That's an ancient topic. That too they can do and do, because they can support women and should financially support women in that way, but women can't be completely dependent upon that financial support. But if we have the even field of Shiva Shakti balancing each other, then we have a relationship that is intertwined. If the Shiva is ill, the woman goes and she works and she brings in the income. If the woman is having a baby, the Shiva goes out and does what he needs to do to support that, and putting income aside, because most of our life have been driven in this turmoil of this arduous turmoil, this rat race of, we have to have a job, we have to have this, we have to afford this, and this house is, our neighbor's house is bigger, we've got to get a bigger car, we got that, 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 that. And so basically, we're just stuck in this place. So where is the time for introspection, for reflection, for the self-reflecting power that makes us who we are?
It's true. I mean, I think that it's very difficult to go through a spiritual awakening because you are so distracted by life. Nobody has time to be um looking within because they're worried about trying to put food on the table or pay that bill or whatever. Like it is, I think it's on purpose that we are so distracted by social media, by the so-called economy that doesn't work for anyone but rich people anyways. And everything is just there to suppress us from figuring out our true power that lies within and embracing it and knowing it and then transforming our world based on our own
And
awakening.
those who've been looking for simpler lives, like I said, I was living in the mountains of Pisgah. There were very few New Yorkers there, or people from Florida or whatever. It was the mountain people. It was the Appalachia. It was, I loved that culture. It was so basic and earth driven. The farms, and until all the pesticides moved in, whatever. But there was still that natural element of the Shiva force in the male farmers. There was still that natural element of the strength and the sturdiness of the feminine force in the women. I mean, those women, you wouldn't take them on at all. They were so mentally
I'm
strong
sure.
and emotionally precise. And so, and those were beautiful years. And so when the newcomers, and I was one of them, but I had great friendship with the elders in the community, and they taught me so many things. But when the newcomers came in with their own different, their monies and their whatever, and they start building these concrete jungles of homes and big, huge, whatever, you realize that they're just bringing their ignorance with them. They're not simplifying their life from moving away from 9/11 or wherever. They're simply bringing all the appendages with them and foisting it upon the good
Yeah.
earth over somewhere else
Yeah.
that used to be so pristine. So yeah, we've got to start looking deeply, right, Christy, at the core of our lives. We can start by emptying closets, giving away stuff, simplifying our lives, getting into a place that has a good backyard, a good park next door, or whatever. We can simplify our lives. There is no reason on earth why we have to struggle to pay our bills if we can find less a place that is humbler, that it has nature around it, that whatever. We don't need to send our children to 20 different lessons a day or a week, and be their chauffeur. We don't need to make them
Yes.
into little celebrity whatever, because they're going to grow up useless as they get older. Um, so, so
Yeah.
yeah, we can simplify, and we better start simplifying, because the purpose of life is not to just work, earn, and then and pay bills and have one miserable problem after another. It has to be greater than that. We've got to have time for reflection. For
We're so mesmerized by materialism. We are obsessed with
yeah,
materialism, man. We want to have the bigger house, the nicer outfit, the nicer car. It's status driven. I live in LA, man. I deal with that. I see it all the time. We are completely asleep when it comes to the level of consuming, the level of greed, the lattice of seeking status, and having that be something we think is going to fill us up and make us feel like we're superior and all of that. And we need to start really
calling it out.
gut checking that.
Friends
Yes,
need to call
calling
it
it
out
out
with
like
each
it's,
other. In our
yes,
community of family and friends and whoever we have close by, we need to
yes,
call each other out on it, and
yes.
be the mirror.
Like,
Remind each other. We're all flawed here. Remind each other, of it, because somewhere along the line we forgot who we are. So now we've got to bring that memory
yes,
back. We've got to reclaim that sense of self, that
yes.
memory, and not
It,
be bamboozled. And most people are willing to see that they're being bamboozled right now. I mean, by
yeah.
by it, it it is. Um, I've got a great deal of intelligence from my wonderful lineage of uh, of 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 great masters, spiritual masters, in a tradition that has that kind of, and we do have the imprint of ancestors. If we ever feel that we're standing it alone, we're not. If we don't believe the divine energies are protecting us, please know your ancestors are definitely there, especially for women, because they are watching the changes that you're making that they could not make. That you've got all these opportunities to make it. And even with my big voluminous mind, I still, you get on Facebook and then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I've been on it 1 hour, looking at what? And so
Yeah.
it is
Yeah. Yeah.
hypnotizing, even for the best of us. It's hypnotizing. It's your whoop, 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 and before you know it, the time is just gone. You know, some good stories are there, but basically all of it is a trap.
Yeah. You're wasting your time. Like, part of my own spiritual awakening has really kind of unhooked me from mainstream media, from mainstream culture. And one of the things that I've done is I spend so much more time in silence, not listening to anything. I don't have anything on. I'll spend the morning with a cup of coffee in my place, silent. And that is where you get your best insights. It gives your most inspiration. It makes you feel grounded and centered, and you're not distracted with bullshit coming into your ears and eyeballs constantly. And it gives you a sense to get in your own
Yes,
body, have your own thoughts, have your own opinions, use your old critical thinking skills. Why don't you try that for a little bit? Like nobody's actually thinking anymore. They're just letting information invade their space and reacting to it. And a lot of that is fear reaction or anger reaction. Instead of owning your own emotions, your
right.
own thoughts, stop constantly looking outside of yourself and look within.
Yeah. The
And
hardest
it,
thing to do because of the setup, and this is where we have to relearn how to just be with ourselves. Because doing nothing has always been the hardest thing in human consciousness. But in this doing nothing is where the awareness really comes to the fore, where we begin to shine, where it gives us the answers. We have every single answer neatly packaged within ourselves. The question is, what is the question? And we never know the right question unless we are living in and with our bounty of gifts and consciousness and awareness and everything that's filling us. In that we are that self
yeah,
generating intelligence. We are, and when we talk about earth intelligence, by the way, that's a wonderful question you had in one of the prep. And
yes,
I had no idea that AI had already taken over the terminology earth intelligence, which in their concept of it is all the artificial. AI robotic stuff. Well, no, we're talking about Earth's intelligence, the absolute innate natural intelligence of Mother Earth. That intelligence. So this system is so good at usurping what is the
Yes.
real agenda and making it their own agenda. And honestly, I had no idea when I was writing about Earth intelligence that AI had already swapped it up.
That's
And if you
crazy.
look at the
That's
dictionary
crazy.
or Google the term, it gives you only AI explanations. And then we're looking at Earth's
It's so true.
intelligence and how we've destroyed the sun. Did you see the humongous coronal holes that are with trillions of tons of plasma flying out of the whole of it? And all that humanity can say right now is, oh my God, we're having so many great the auroras and well, the sun is suffering. I mean, and we need to look at where we're going with our Earth's intelligence, and I don't mean AI.
Yeah. I mean, I think the ecological impact that we're having on this planet is the greatest catastrophe that no one is talking about. No one is talking about it anymore. It's not even in the
No,
mainstream
it's not in the mainstream
media's
in
mind.
news at all. And
No.
because it continues to happen. The most recent, the news breaking out a little bit here and there. You see it in reels or wherever, but you don't really see it on mainstream TV. And that is about the pigmentation of plastics in the clouds now. So the clouds are raining.
Yeah.
The rain is raining plastics now. I mean, it's a we've gone to where we're completely destroying Mother Earth and space as well, not just Mother Earth. I don't think
Yeah.
interstellar motherships are going to arrive here because we're doing anything good. There's a threat to the other galaxies, and the government is saying nothing about it because they're afraid. Um, and they have every reason to be afraid because they're the ones that the galactics are
Coming for them. Coming
you
for
know.
them. You know, if they think we're going to be able to put nukes up into space, they're nuts. Like the other species out there going to be like, look, you dum dums. We're not doing that. You're not doing that. And we're going to shut this down right now. Like, there's just, we are so lost right now that it doesn't even feel like what's going on this timeline seems real anymore. It doesn't even seem serious. Like, is this serious? Like, what? Have I gotten on a dystopian timeline and I didn't know? Like, this can't be real. Like, you could make a Hollywood movie about what's happening within the world right now. Like, we are so stupid that we're going to go ahead and put ourselves in like ginormous jeopardy over profit, over money, over being the best, this ego thing that men have where they have to conquer the world and be that, I don't know what, but it is ruining the planet. And we are now marching towards World War III because men can't seem to have any diplomacy anymore. Because why? You need to have the biggest truck on the fucking beach. Like, what in the hell is going on now at this point?
And the thing is that science, there's nothing wrong with science. It's just that we have to understand that we cannot do it against nature. We cannot do it against the
No.
other planets. We cannot do it against our own humanity. We cannot do it against the strive of consciousness. We've got to do it within. Because look, there are ancient cultures like the mothership coming, that's already been here and coming back, like the Aztecs, like the pyramids, like everything that we don't know about, that have built enormous scientific feats in our universe and in the world that we don't know of. And they didn't do it to destroy, they did it to build, to bring up the absolute essence of our consciousness and integrity. So we just need to reposition consciousness and integrity behind what we do as opposed to the force of greed and competition. And this is where
It's
the
it.
patriarchal problem, it is a problem. They are hysterical, by the way. They call women hysterical, but they're the ones who are completely hysterical. And they're
Well, there's
in
just
their hysteria, and
little,
they're hysterical because it's driven by greed and competition and
yes.
separatism. Whereas the original science is built spacecrafts and incredible modalities out of their respect they're honoring the nature of consciousness. There's a difference. There's a difference.
We
How much farther can we go
we
with our incredible inventions if we do it in sync with nature? If we allow nature to help ourselves.
That's right.
And one more thing, Christy, because
That's right.
it just came to mind. I was listening to some program, I don't remember how long ago, but I've been very fascinated by the moon cycles or whatever. It's part of the Ayurveda that I teach, and the education of what happens to women at the new moon and their cyclical menstrual cycle, and what happened to their ovulation cycle at the full moon and all of that, and trying to put it back to where it was before, pregnancy got distorted by modern science. And so what we're looking at is when the moon is full, I was told that the spacecraft from other galaxies and planets can kind of use the gravitational field to ooze into the Earth, into the Earth's
Oh,
atmosphere. So they know the timing of all the planets to know what Jupiter is going to do, when not to go against Mars, when to go when the full moon is there, how far away is the sun from the moon before they can be. They don't even use their engines. They just use the gravitational field to come in. I mean, it was
I
fascinating.
mean,
The intelligence.
it's
How could you not
fascinating.
love that intelligence?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the sooner that people understand we are nature, we're a part of nature, we need nature to live. Part of the reason why we're so sick, so distracted, so unfocused is because we don't align with nature, spend more time in nature. It is going to give you energy, a depth that you could not exist without it. Like we cannot exist without nature, you guys. We need it.
So many times when I was working a great deal with women with cancer, and I helped so many, really hundreds of women, um, just sitting by a brook and listening to the rhythm, putting your feet in the cold water as it ripples across and just massages your feet as with its own rhythm, brings back for people who've had um, nervous system breakdowns. We've done this. We've just simple things, simple,
It will heal you.
simple
Yes.
stuff. It's called. You can change a complete situation around you that is chaotic and troublesome by breathing. Left
Yes.
nostril breath helps you to calm the nervous system. The right breath teaches you how to activate the system just by breathing. And you find that when you are holding suffering and pain and disorder in the mind, that the breath stops. It becomes very shallow. And so if we just learn how to breathe, we have a solution to something. You know, in ancient
Yes.
Chinese medicine as well, when they ran out of the herbs and they had great deal of drought some thousands of years back, and the master had um, drawings of the herbs, and you would actually just be looking and taking in the energy of the drawing of the herb to make you feel better. Imagine how
Yes.
phenomenal our holographic intelligence is, or field of what can serve us,
Yes.
and how much effort it takes to destroy that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's still not destroyed.
It
They cannot destroy it. It's still there in each one of us.
it is. I mean, what in these times, what is your advice to other women out there when dealing with this so-called thing we call the patriarchy, which is, has a lot to do with what's going on with the world these days. What is your advice for women? What can women do to not only start stepping into their own power, but what do you
And we've
suggest
been talking
women do these days?
throughout this wonderful dialogue with you, Christy, and it's such a profound conversation, really. We've been talking about women, what women need to do. Simplify your life. Find that space where you can widen the inner space, because unless we have inner space, we can't negotiate. We can't
Mhm.
negotiate life. We can't negotiate our happiness. We can't empower ourselves further. So we have to start emptying some of our inner space. And the only way we can do that is through understanding that if we sit and create the time, little spaces in our home where we have a picture that we like, of beautiful flowers, a little candle, a little something of meaning. You know, if you're religious, you have a deity of some sort. Innate, if you have a wonderful, fabulous, ancient elder wisdom, you put them on the table there and you keep a clean and sparse space where you can sit and just be with yourself. And to, because what we're doing is we breathe into their wonderful exercises at the end of most of the chapters. And my publisher made sure I did that because I didn't want to write a practice book, which I have done so many of. I didn't want to just give us bombs. You know, we're sick and tired of just ointments and bombs and what we do, and have developed the New Age and elitist movement really based on all these things, because that alone wouldn't help us. We need to understand the core of where we find ourselves. And that's what I Am Shakti gives us. It gives us that deep historical understanding of how we have been betrayed and how we can reclaim. And
Yes.
the simple practices there help us through breathing. It does takes a few minutes. It doesn't. You're driving, you're practicing it. It takes very little time, but it takes a shift in perception, a shift in thinking, a shift in knowing who we are truly, a shift in self affirmation of telling ourselves who we are every morning. When we get up and are brushing our teeth, I am this, I am Shakti, I am the Shakti force. And now I've created a new word, I'm Shaktified. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and the Shaktification, another word I've created, Shaktified and Shaktification, fear men get very scared. And they're like, you know, someone is trying to bamboozle you or use the same old root or some routine around you to somehow maneuver and manipulate, and you go, I am the Shakti force. I am feeling very
Yeah.
Shaktified right now. and
Yes. So am I.
and
I mean,
Shaktification,
bring it on.
Shaktification is all around me. Look, men take cues, and we have to retrain, and we have to re-educate, and we have to do it with the same way we do with children, very gently, very much when they're available to listen to it. But what
I
happens
mean,
is, yeah, but we forget that we
I would rather take a sledgehammer to them, though.
no,
Don't you think they need to be hit
no,
over the
no,
head?
no, no,
I
no.
do. Like, I don't
No,
know,
they
man.
don't.
I
I'm
don't
not the
know.
man who gets a big truck like the F whatever 15 they were driving in the mountain. And if that isn't good enough for him, I love when he puts on the big tires and I'm going, yes, brother, here we go. You know, I mean, I saw many of these wonderful men out there in the beautiful country. They're all tattooed, they're big motorcycle, they're racing. And I decided I used to love to refurbish old cars, like I had an Impala 1964. And what macho men really love are old cars, right? And I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was my ticket into the community where they fell in love with the car. So then they tolerated me. And, like that. And oftentimes, just to jive them, I would go on the highway with my 1964 Chevy Impala. And I love mechanical cars.
Yes.
And I would put on the Confederate flag on both sides because it was Confederate country. And these guys in the big motorcycle would go by and they're zooming up the wonderful Blue Ridge Parkway, and I'm in my Impala with Confederate flags. And the reason I did it was just out of the joy of watching their response. Because when they first notice the car, because they love old cars, and then when they pass you by in their motorcycle and they see she's a black woman, it's, it's like the color spectrum on the Confederate thing doesn't, you know, it doesn't fit.
Mm,
And so you
does not compute.
it
Yeah,
doesn't compute. And
exactly.
so I've done a
Yeah.
lot of stuff like that in the mountain. But men should be men. Let them get the biggest truck. Let them show off their muscles and do whatever they do. But they also have to own their own beautiful primordial intelligence. And that is where women can help them. And women need to help them because men alone can't help men to do this.
No, they need us to get where we're going. They just absolutely do. and we should absolutely have a seat at the table. And to think otherwise is really a disservice to not only women, but the entire
Yeah,
planet
and
and
it's not
humanity
even
in
about
general.
equality, because I say that in the book, I say this, that equality is not what we're after. We are who we are. We are the divine feminine force. And I'm not going to say we're superior to the male intelligence, because we're not, because the consciousness is what it is. But we have our own terrain here that are equally as powerful. Sometimes one outpowers the other. That's fine. It happens in the state of balance. There's flux, but we are the fulcrum, and we are the fire, and we are the future,
Yes.
and we are the present, and we are the past as well. But we're looking at what we're saying. It's one thing to have a wonderful relationship with your spouse, with your husband, with your sons. And then this becomes easier to have these wonderful vada, as we call it, which is intelligent exchanges. Um, it's
Hmm.
another thing when you're in an abusive relationship. And that
Right.
is a completely different kettle that we need to handle differently. You have to
Yeah.
find the courage and the support of your female elders and friends and community to get out of that trap. And if it is to leave the
Yep.
relationship, you have to. You put your shoes on and you walk, because there is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It damages you, it damages your children if you have an abusive relationship. No toxic relationship can really be in a home. The person, if you still care for the person and want to help them, they can live somewhere else, and you can help them at a distance. We have to have the courage,
Yep.
women, to do this. And if income is the only reason that keeps you stuck, then that's a simple solution. Really, it is simpler than we think it is. We do what we have to because our sacred feminine energy you cannot, that's the most precious thing you own. You can't,
Yeah. I agree.
you can't allow it to be battered. In the mission, in
I
the Mother
agree.
O mission that I ran for so many years in the inner cities of New York and Guyana, where I was born, so many women are in destructive relationships, abusive, beaten up, different, whatever, uh, diseases being brought home to the woman, stuff like that, and children being beaten up as well. And we've worked so hard with these communities to get them to safe places, to whatever. Husband find them, and then they go back with them, and then you have to again do it. It takes such a depth of education, um, communities that had just so many layers of poverty and have
Yep.
triple jobs and children and
Trauma, trauma,
trauma and
trauma,
trauma.
trauma,
So and
trauma.
and
Yep.
all of my uh, teachers were volunteers. I trained volunteer forces from a little bit better community. You can't. What I learned was interesting, Chrissy. This may be off point, but I had brought in some of my more sophisticated educators, right? The ones that I trained that were doctors or in the holistic field and had yoga centers with them. They couldn't at all make it in these communities. There was no
Hmm.
way to communicate with pathology that deep, because the community members didn't truly had anything to connect with there that was the sameness that was, you understand what I'm saying. So I had to find
Yes.
communities that weren't dysfunction, but but the leaders of those communities who understood their
Yeah.
community to get in. So that was many years of very, very difficult work.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I mean, but what would the world do without Maya, man? What would we do?
Well, what would the world do without Christy? But but own your feminine self. And by the way, you have no idea how right that point was. It wasn't about Maya, me, Maya, the name. Maya means the maternal force of the universe.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. There you
So,
go. So what I said was
so
so
what you
true.
say is very true. It's not about me, the person.
What would we do without
What would we
Maya?
do without Maya? And Maya is Christy, Maya is Victoria, Maya is, Lindsay, Maya is every one of us. It's the
Yeah.
maternal mother. And I do tell women, of course, I come from very religious backgrounds, but I've earned my stripes in the spiritual field, and I make a difference between spirituality and religion. You know, spirituality is when you go to the understanding that your goddess is within you, your God is within you. And yes, you can project it outside, but it lives within the cell and memory of who you are.
Yes, great. That's a great point. And you know, I want to really suggest that everybody go out and buy your book because it does give a great, deep rundown of how we got here, how we can turn it around, and what all this really means energetically. Because everything I'm finding in my own spiritual journey, it's so much more about energies and balancing them and how you use them and who you and remembering who you are than it is about anything else. So it's a really great book of remembering who we are, ladies. Remembering who we are.
Thank you, Christy. That's a beautiful, beautiful way to put it, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to showcase the book, but and more importantly, the opportunity to have this very valuable, priceless conversation with you, and for all of our women friends listening. This is it's really deep. We can do it. We can do it together. We can support each other, and uh,
I
and
agree.
also when you find, even in your own clan, your own family, your own whatever, when there are feelings of separation because someone is trying to berate or there's envy or whatever, always catch that. Don't ignore that. That's don't play it down, because we can so much of us can be so much of what we have that is sacred for us can be sort of whittled from the inside, if you know what I mean. So be
Yeah.
careful even in your be observant even in your own circle. And you know it because we're trained so poorly, and until we can get the retraining, we need to be a little bit more observant.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I would love to thank Maya for coming on the show today. And I think we need to have more conversations like this. And I think that talking about feminine power is a very needed topic in our culture, in our communities today. And I think we should start having more of these conversations and coming
Yes.
together and getting shaktified.
That sounds wonderful coming from you, the way
You
you
know?
say it. Thank you.
Let's do
Thank
it.
you.
I'm for
Yes.
it. With that, ladies and gentlemen, please pick up her book, I Am Shakti. You can find it on Amazon. I'll put the link in the show
Yes.
notes. Where else? Do you have any websites? Anything else you want to
Yes.
plug? If somebody wanted to reach
My
out to you?
personal website is mayatiwari.com. That's MAYATIWARI.com. You can also get it from wiseearth.com, which is the nonprofit work I do teaching, training Ayurveda. Yes, and almost all major retailers, as well as Amazon.com. Thank you.
Maya, you keep doing what you're doing. You are such a light out there. I have an immense amount respect and love for you. And thank you for coming on the Fate podcast
Thank you,
today.
Christy. My pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week on Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. Thank you, Maya. We'll see you next week, Dan.
All right.
Bye. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. I want to thank Maya for coming on the show today and sharing her story. I really think that this topic is so important with what's going on in our world, the imbalances of male, female energies that you can see across our world is on full display. I mean, clearly, women need to start taking our place alongside men and helping to heal and form our societies because this barbarism, this violence, this greed that is just infected itself across every single avenue of our lives. If females were running the world, do you think we'd be trotting towards World War III right now? Do you think we'd have the imbalances that we have in this world with so few having so much and so many having next to nothing? Do you think we would have that if women were in control of our communities and our societies? I can tell you, and you know the answer to this, the answer would be no. We have let men drive up this over competitive, over greedy, violent world that we live in. I'm not trying to bash men at all, but I do think that men know we're smarter. I think men know we're more capable. We are the creators on this planet. We're the portals in which souls incarnate on this plane. We should have always had a seat at the table. Feminine energy is the balancing energy that needs to happen in order for us to find peace with not only ourselves, but with nature, within our economies, within our education and health, everything. There needs to be more feminine energy. And that means the women that are in positions of power, you need to really get your balls out, for lack of a better word, ladies, and start speaking up when you see the patriarchy rear its ugly head. You need to promote that female that's down the pike from you. And if you're in a relationship where you're submissive to a man, I have to really question your programming. And you really should start questioning your programming as well. Because we were never meant to be submissive to men. It's never, was never supposed to be women are less than, inferior to men. And I think women need to start saying that every single chance they get, like I am right now. And we need to be more confident and more secure in ourselves, in speaking, in standing up. Like, I am in male dominated rooms all of the time, ladies. I work in the movie industry. I don't ever think about the fact that I'm a woman when I'm with a bunch of dudes. It doesn't even occur to me. And I know I'm different because I grew up different. I grew up like super rough and tumble, hung out with dudes my whole life. Before I was in the movie industry, I was in the animal industry, and like that's a whole nother cowboy arena that you get into when it becomes male energy. I've been dealing with the patriarchy my entire life, just like every other woman out there. But if you fuck with me, I will show you why I have my father's last name. I owe a lot to my dad. I'm just going to take a minute because, talking about my dad. I never got to tell my dad that the reason why I am as strong as I am is because of my dad. My dad, he didn't treat me less like a girl, He had three girls. He had three girls. And I was the closest thing that he had to a boy because I liked to fish and I could play ball and we would fight, we would wrestle, and I would he would let me win, obviously, but like when you're a young girl and you're like beating up your dad at 6 years old and giving him a bloody nose, it makes you feel very empowered, and it makes you feel that you're of equal playing field. And I took that energy out into the world, and I did. I was the toughest kid on my block. I beat up all the boys because in your head, if you can beat your dad up, certainly you can take these kids that are on their bikes next to you. Like, certainly I can take them. I took my dad. That you don't know, you don't know. Your dad's like letting you win. But it goes back to belief in who you are, belief that you're powerful, belief that you can do things. And the sooner the women can start stepping back into their own power and not feeling insecure or less than or buying into this patriarchal system that wants you back in the kitchen or submissive to some husband or only relegated to child rearing or whatever kind of crazy bullshit. And it's just only beginning. But I think this great awakening of men and women in our society to understanding who we are, to understanding that we're all here for a purpose. We all have our own journeys. We're all expanding our souls in it. And that we are needed more than ever to be standing up to what we believe and to helping men understand who they are and helping men embrace their feminine energy and reworking what masculinity is today. There's so much baggage trauma when it even just surrounds male and female dynamics in general. Like, we've got to start waking up. We have completely been distracted and taken away from who we are really meant to be. Like, if you are being told that you should submit to anyone else other than your own sovereign self, run. It's the wrong direction. Go the other way. Let's bring the rise of the feminine divine to the forefront. Let's start supporting each other. And let's bring the men along that deserve our love, respect, and hand in partnership. And the men that want to continue to subjugate us, to rape us, to be violent towards us, they need a punch in the dick. That's what they need. Okay. All right. Well, then, with that, we will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Thank you, Maya. You are a warrior in your own right. Nothing but love. Well, I've talked enough. I'm going to let this one go, and we will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Journey well, everyone. Oh, welcome to your fate.